Se fra når vi er live.
Gjør det. Da skal jeg skulle bare fått opp manuset her.
You are live, Didrik.
All right. Good. Hello, Internet. Everyone today, and today we are going to talk about content modeling and give a brief introduction to what it is and how it works in Crystallize. With me today is Bård.
Hi, Didrik.
Hello, Bård. Say hello to the Internet as well.
Hello, Internet.
And what we are going to do is walk you through the basics on how we model in terms of before we go out starting to develop, basically.
That's good. So maybe if you just scroll down to, there's a diagram on this page, just to keep that up as a background, because this is an example of a content model. And that is what we're going to do today. We are going to walk through, first of all, what is content modeling? And basically, it's the process where we, what do you say? We structure the content so that you can reuse it in any channel. Isn't that what content modeling is? And if we look at the goals here, so because there's different ways to model content, and there's not necessarily one right way of doing it. But some of the goals you want to achieve is reuse, meaning that you shouldn't have any piece of content that you cut and paste, or copy paste, because you don't cut it. And then you also want to be able to reuse the content for multi-channel, meaning that it shouldn't be necessarily channel-specific content, or it might be, but then you should tell that this is channel-specific content. And
because when you're talking about channels, you're talking about a website. It's either a website, an app, in-store.
Exactly. Point of sale, for example.
Point of sales,
Yeah. And of course, any future channel that you might think of. Syndication, for example, feeding this to third-party marketplaces, etc. And results of this is also that you increase the quality of your content. And ideally, if you have done a good job, you save time in content production because you have an efficient way of creating and managing content, both for products and rich marketing content. And we will look at both sides here today.
Perfect.
But there's a process here. And of course, we all have our different ways of looking at content modeling. Well, not everybody has a different way, but we have a couple of principles that we typically follow. And the first one out is discovery, which basically means identify the different types of content that you are managing in all of your channels. This could be products. It could be different types of products, blog posts, that's content, product marketing, your marketing pages, which may or may not have e-commerce, documentation, it could be e-learning, etc., etc. So there's different types of content, both today, but also you should think about what are you doing tomorrow or what's in your roadmap for content. Because you want to have a content model that you can grow with, future-proofing, as we call it. And once you've gathered, all the types of content that you're working with, is to start by looking at similar types of content, because you might have a product which is a TV, or you might have a product which is a fridge, and they're similar. They all have, title, lead, etc., but they might also have some information which is different. So we'll look into how we can treat that. Because they're both a product, but their information is different, and the structure of the information is different.
No, because what we want to try to achieve is to keep the content model to a minimum. We don't want repeating shapes, basically, for what the content is.
And shapes is the technical term in Crystallize, which is the definition of a piece of content, which could be a product or a document, or as we call a folder. But we will get back to that a little bit later.
I jumped ahead, I guess. I'm eager.
That's good. But also, so we've done the discovery. We know the different types of content. We know which of the products are similar, for example, or the types of product. And then it's to look at, do we have repeating information? Because maybe on several of the products you have information about the manufacturer, or if you're having articles or blog posts, maybe you have authors, which have, picture, you have the name, you have the link to their social media, etc. So you want to identify, what's repeating, which may mean that we can separate it out as a separate piece of information so that you can reuse it. Because the last part is basically to define the relationships. And if you look at the model that Didrik shows here, you have, this is for a cooking recipe, where you also have a relation to appliances, stand mixer, etc. And you have ingredients, flour, pepper, corn, whatever you're using to create your recipe. And also it's a relation to a chef. And this is an example of repeating information about the chef, the name, bio, link, which is separated out so that you only enter the information about the chef once. And then you define the relationship with the recipes that this chef has, let's say, designed, for lack of a better word.
Discovered?
Created, come up with. So it's this kind of relationships. And after you've done the content modeling, it's basically, the next step is then what you call information architecture, which is basically how you want to organize your content. Maybe you're creating your product catalog, you have your shop, you have your different types of products, you have categories, etc., etc. But you can also look at multi-dimensional taxonomies. We'll take a look at that, and also different types of organizing content, like, for example, a grid concept, which is a matrix-based way of organizing products and also content, which is useful both for making pretty pages, but perhaps also to, be the interface of the point of sale system. For example, if you go to, let's say you go to a burger shop and they have a screen where you can order, that type of interface is typically point of sale for, typically grid or cash register. Yeah.
Basically, when you want an overview of in a grid organizer, or a grid layout could also be a thing. But I remember the first thing on grid organizers that I came up with was my desktop in my early days on the computer, when you had folders up in the left corners and you had organized some other folders up in the right corner, for example. That's also a way to organize grids.
I'm not sure that's a great example if you're talking about content modeling and information architecture, because no. I have seen your desktop.
Well, yes, yeah, and I'm not going to show it here, but like I said, in the early days.
So, but if we switch to Crystallize, let's do some modeling. And as we've shown in previous videos, we typically start with designing this in Figma. But in this case, we'll just jump directly and do the introduction in Crystallize. So Didrik is now creating a new tenant, which, you can do. It's just, it's free even. So you can use it as a tool for modeling your content. And then you can switch to it.
Yeah, I guess I should. Where did it go? Yeah, now I have a couple. Here we go. All right.
And the first thing is that you actually have here some shapes, and the shapes are content models, basically. That can be either a product, which then is sellable because you have prices, you have product variants, etc., in addition to the rich marketing content. Document could be, blog post in its simplest form, or a folder. It's a hierarchical piece of information that you use to build, for example, your product catalog. So let's, remove the article and product. Start fresh.
Let's delete those.
Can you also zoom in a little bit in your browser?
I can. Is it better now?
Yeah, a little bit. That's good.
Yeah. So here. So what we did now, we deleted both the product and document shape, and we left with folder because I don't think we need more content on that than we have today.
No, I think that's good. And if we then follow the process, let's create a product because we want to create a backend for a new shop, and you call the shape product. And this is where, if you have different types of product, you would name it, for example, electronic product, subscription product, digital access. So this is the type of product, and in Crystallize you can have as many different types of content as you like, and they can also be products. And now you have a blank canvas, Didrik.
I do.
What should we do then?
Well, often, and it's like we always say, that you want to sell a product, but it is how to sell it. What is the type of content that you need to sell your product?
And let's say that we, electronics store, and you have, let's go into TV and a fridge, because that's the only thing you need according to a Norwegian musician.
Yes, that you played a concert with once.
Yeah, true that.
All right, we do have some generic components that we usually also want. Like, let's say, typical product contains all the product information, which is implicit in a product shape. But you also want to have, like, okay, some good marketing text, like a title, some summary, lead-in, and a story.
Yeah. And this is, let's say we've done a process, we looked at all of our products, and we identified these are common for at least all products that we have. TV and fridges, which is our shop. TV and fridges incorporated.
Yeah. So let's start out. So what I did now, I dragged a single line component, which is a simple string. It's a text field.
And what you have there on the right-hand side, which we kind of didn't say, it's a list of components and also structured components. So these are the different types of content and data that you can manage. But also we'll look at the structural components, which is magic, is what we call it.
We wanted to call it magic, but somebody didn't allow us.
So it's structural components.
Cool, structural component is. We'll add a lead text as well.
And this is the rich text component. So it's a structured, formatted text, but it's a single box that you can fill in.
Yes, and then in here you can do everything that you would expect from a text field, basically. Bold out, add links, etc., etc.
Even bullet lists.
Even bullet lists and ordered lists. I guess that's a bullet list. And then we have, some repeating content, I guess, or some structured content. It's two approaches to this, right?
Yeah.
But here, let's call it not sorry, but story. And a paragraph collection basically is a single line and rich text and media combined into one.
Yeah.
What you can do with the paragraph collection, you could add title, description, and some images or video, but you can also repeat those fields as many times as you want.
So instead of having a big text field where you just format the content, you have a more structured approach where you have chunks of paragraphs, and each paragraph have a title and some media, maybe some videos, and then the formatted content. So the thinking is that this enforces best practice writing for the web, so that you kind of do a title, you do some text, and do some media, and then you repeat, so that you get proper formatted web content or content in general.
Exactly.
So this is the common components. I concur. This works fine for both our TV and our fridge, but my TV has properties like diagonal inches, whatever that is called, the size of the TV, if it's 60 inch or 65 or even 70. And then the fridge has properties which is, for example, volume, liters.
Exactly. Well, one thing though is that I guess a fridge can also have TVs these days. But let's go back to 2010, where fridges didn't have TVs. So we won't be able to differentiate them. But we know that they have some generic components. All of them have a title, lead, and story. And we want to differentiate between a TV and a fridge because they have some properties.
And this is what we call a polymorphic component, choice component. And it's basically where you can call this the properties or...
Yes, it's properties. It's a structural choice component where you, as an editor inside of Crystallize, need to make a choice.
And we will show the editing of this editorially so that you see how it ends up.
Yes, exactly.
It's quite cool, I promise.
So what we are doing now is we're making ready everything that we need for the editor to add their content. So we have the choice component, and you can see once again, it tells me to drag some components inside.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we'll start out with the TV. TV.
Yeah.
I'll call it a fixed property. So the difference here is that one is just a fluid table, while this has some fixed keys where we will predefine all the keys that needs to be filled out in when you edit a product inside Crystallize.
And then I want to have dimensions for this, for example.
Yeah, dimensions.
And that would be, I don't know, let's do width and height and then diagonal, just to have some different properties.
Diagonal, like that.
Yeah, good enough. And just leave it at that. And then for the fridge, what do we want there?
It's volume.
Volume, yes.
Not talking about sound in decibels, but volume in liters.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the most important. You know, how many can you put in the fridge, or is it items that you can place there? No, just do the dimensions. That's fine. It needs to say.
It is dimensions, but it's
fridge dimensions. So call it volume, for example.
Volume. So
without the and, volume.
Yeah, so volume. Here we go.
And of course, add the width, height, depth also for the fridge, just to have a little bit more fields. But you see, so this is where you can enter the specific properties for the types of products that you're selling. And you can also have multiple sections here. So you could have add another section just to show for the fridge and call it electric. So electric properties, and that could be, what could it be? Not that, but it's well, you can call it what you call it with if it's rated green or yellow or the eco rating.
Eco rating, yeah.
That's not the name, but
yeah, it is.
In our shop, it is.
We can also add, for example, what's the maximum below 0 degrees, for example, which doesn't apply to a TV. So what we're doing here is adding fridge-specific properties that wouldn't apply to a TV, just to get the semantics correct. And instead of adding a lot of tables for all the different products that we need and just keep it blank, we just add the component that we need or the table that we need for the specific product.
And also, it's not like just a text field that you enter. You format some content and you enter the text about the volume and the height, etc. Because what we can do in the second stage of this is this can be used for comparing products. It could be used to facet search, etc. So it's useful once you have the semantics of this. And of course, if you sell something else than a TV and a fridge, which makes no sense to me, but if you do, you can also add then different types of properties for that. So it's neat because we just have one shape for a product, but we can sell different types of products, even with different fields of specification for that.
Yes.
But then I talked about channel specific content and saying that, well, you want to be channel neutral, but also sometimes you want to have specific information for web, for example. There's 3 fields which is really popular to add to web or content that should be displayed on the web. Maybe you can decipher that one, Didrik.
Should I guess? Is it something in the direction of OG metadata?
Maybe.
Maybe.
How would you do that?
Just because this is it's a channel-specific thing, I don't want it as just a component here. I want to add it to a chunk, and like we said, a chunk is basically a combined group of components,
which you can give a name also. So it's a semantic group of components there. Call it meta. Yeah, that's fine.
I see meta, like so.
Yeah. And also notice here on the chunk here, you can choose if it's single or if it's repeating. We will show repeating, but let's start with the single here because it's just a group of SEO fields for the web, right?
Yeah.
And that's not relevant if you're fetching the content from, for a point of sale system. You don't want to have the SEO information. So you can filter that out on the retrieving end of things.
So what we are doing now to the SEO meta, we are adding meta title, meta body, I guess, or a description.
Description, I think, is the OG share name, right?
Yep. And the OG image. So, image.
Cool.
So, yes, word.
Well put, Didrik. Well put.
Thank you. I did my best. But what we have actually done here is to create a chunk, which we'll show later as well, is either there or it's not.
Oh, that's nice.
So, yeah. So, it's, yes.
Good stuff, Didrik. But let's jump on some repeating structures because let's say you are also selling power tool bundles in this store, right? So you have a drill, and the drill comes with maybe a couple of batteries or things like this. So often you have a bundle of products, and of course it could be also related to this because if you're selling a bundle with TV and maybe a fridge.
TVs, cables to the TV, HDMI cable.
That's more relevant.
Maybe, well, like I said, you might need an HDMI cable for the fridge as well these days.
Yeah, and then if you're making the shop, as in our shop, which is TVs and Fridge Incorporated, we want to make the products that the customer want to buy, not that they buy the TV and then they have to figure out, oh, I need the thing to put it on the wall, and then I need the cables, and I need the sound bar. Because, so that would be the bundle. Good example, Didrik. And how do you do that?
I'll add another chunk, actually. And I'll call this bundle. Let's call it a bundle.
Yeah.
Because this could this is included in one bundle or multiple bundles. But what we want to do here is to have HDMI cable. Let's say that you want to add a HDMI cable, but it can also be multiple HDMI cables. I think that's the use case we're going for here.
Yeah, because you want to connect both one thing and another thing, and then you need two HDMI cable. So example is both an Apple TV connected to your TV, and then the Android thing, the Chromecast thing. That's another thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're super good on examples today. But what I did now, I added a number component, which is once again, it's just another type of component where it takes numbers. So already semantic, correct numbers.
Yeah. And this is actually also a cool component, but now you just called it discount, and here you can define the decimals, but you can also define units. So it's possible to, in another case, you could you can call it count, but you can call it add the units PCS, which means pieces. I don't know, or just leave it blank.
We'll add pieces.
Yeah.
Or if you're selling HDMI cables by the meter, you could sell XYZ amount of meters of HDMI cables.
Yeah, exactly. So especially if you're selling speakers, but we're not selling that in our store because we are TV and fridge incorporated.
Yeah, but I'm trying to expand there.
Don't do it.
I won't. Okay. We'll also add a item relation. An item relation is once again it's a field that takes something else in your store. So let's say that you have already created a product which is an HDMI cable, and you can relate that product to this product.
Which means that you don't have to enter information about the HDMI cable more than once?
Exactly.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant, Erik.
Thank you. The reason why we're adding this to a bundle is that, or to a chunk, I mean, is that we want this to be repeatable. Because, like I said, either it's there or it's not. And if you add this as a bundle, this product includes an HDMI cable and a count, because it could be 2 HDMI cables. But it can also include something else. Let's say that you want screen wipers for your TV. You want to dust off. Then you can just repeat the chunk.
Could you have more examples of bundled items, Didrik, please?
Yeah, I can keep going. Okay, I guess that's your cue that I'm dragging on. Let's go.
But also it's typical on the like we mentioned in the intro, like the relations to a manufacturer, for example.
Once again, with outside of the chunk, then we're going to add a item relation, which we will call manufacturer. And
also, it might be that you have the screen wipes not included in the bundle, but you still might want to show it like a recommended product or related product.
Also, yeah, it's item relations.
Nice.
And this is like your board says, we don't want to repeat content. So instead of having manufacturer fields here, like a single line, we add it as a separate shape. And we add it once, and we add an item relation instead, a semantic relation to the product.
Which means filtering by manufacturer, creating a separate manufacturer page that filters all the products, etc., etc. It's much simpler down the line.
Yeah.
So I think this is a pretty good product shape, Didrik.
Yeah, I think so as well. At least we can sell both TVs and fridges with some bundle options. Let me create it. There we go.
Nice.
You can see as soon as you create it, we just collapse it to get you a better overview. Okay, so we have a product.
But since it's our store, we want to create some content. You deleted the article. Maybe we want to have just a weekly blog or something like that. Let's make the most super simple type of content called article. Yeah.
And once again, this is for how we want to sell your products. Let's say that we want to create rich stories, which we feature our TVs and our fridges. So once again, we'll add some shapes, or component, I mean, with the title. I want to have some credit whenever I create an article, so I'll add another relation, which is an author. Once again, this means I only have to create myself once in Crystallize. We also want to add some beautiful images or beautiful video. And since we don't want to have empty fields when we create our article, I am going to add a choice component. Media or hero media.
Call it, yeah, hero is good.
I think that's better.
And that's typically for those that aren't familiar with the terminology, it's a big image on top of an article or a big video. Typically, you see on websites.
So this means I need to choose between do I have a hero image or a hero video? Other than that, I'll add a lead-in. It's pretty basic or pretty lead text, right?
Yeah.
Once again, paragraph collection for the body. And of course, we want to feature our products here.
Yeah, because of course, all of the content that we write on our blog, on our TV and Fridge Incorporated company website will contain information about products. It's product placement in our own blog, basically. So that's kind of how the content strategy will work for this web shop in this case. Pretty straightforward in terms of this content, but just to show modeling out the structure for an article or a blog post or what have you, and a product, and that you have the freedom. You're not locked to the predefined fields of a system. You can totally customize all of the fields and also make them repeatable. You can have repeating structures, and you can also have conditional structures. So some might say quite flexible in terms of being able to model out information there. Cool. Create some content, show how this looks, and maybe start with some folders just to have a structure. I don't know.
I think we do. Let's go for shop, maybe. We'll create a folder called shop.
Yeah.
This is the full generic folder that whenever you create a tenant, you get this content.
But of course, this is a shape, so you can customize the folder. You can even have multiple different folders. Yeah. So it could be like a hierarchy of a folder could be a manufacturer, and under the manufacturer, you could create products of that manufacturer. But we chose to create a relation to the manufacturer in this case here, so a little bit different case. Yeah.
Here I could add another folder and say that, okay, under here is all my TVs. But today, since we know that we are only going to sell TVs and
fridges, we'll do a flat list.
I'll do a flat list because there are other ways of organizing your content.
Yeah, you typically build a 2 or 3 or 4 level structure here, depending on what you're selling, right? But we are going to enter the content here manually, so
biggest TV.
Yeah.
And here you can see you get a list of my shapes. Since I only have one now, I can only see my product shapes. But if you were to have multiple, you would get a list down here. Biggest TV. Here we go. Here you can see all the product, and since we specified a product shape, you will get these attributes out of the box, where you have prices, taxes, images, and stock. You also have the option to create variants. Like, say you have multiple TVs, you have 55-inch, 50-inch, 47-inch. You can create all of those as variants.
Or 70-inch.
Or 70-inch. You decide. If you would like to have a new TV each month, you can add a subscription plan. But since we are on content modeling, this is what we have created. And you can see that these are all the fields or components that we have did create in our shapes. Here, I'm going to add some. Yeah, sure.
I'm just thinking a TV each month, that's not a good example of a subscription, Didrik. What about bundling like a streaming service? Let's say access to Flix service or a Prime something, or that would be a monthly subscription that could be bundled.
Or Plus something?
Yeah. Apple. Yeah.
No, exactly. A TV each month might be a bad example, but streaming services, perfect example.
And it's also, you've seen examples of media groups. It's a long time since I've seen the example, but they gave away an iPad if you subscribe to their service. And then you know that their service is crap because you get an iPad for free. But anyhow, that's what you could do here with the subscriptions. But sidetracking, we were talking about modeling here.
We were talking about content modeling. So these are all the components that we have already defined in our structure. So this is the title, biggest TV in the world, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to add content to each and every one of them.
Okay.
But because what I want to show is the story or the paragraph collection here. Like we talked about that this is a repeating component where you add a title.
First
title. Some verb content here. As you see, you can also add the, you can see, if I can find a quick image here. You need a good chair to sit in when you watch your TV. So you just drag and drop it inside here. You can also, of course, add your alt text and your description. And you can add another one.
And this is, in Crystallize, this is a component you use a lot to manage typical body text of articles or stories for products, etc., or body of product, whatever you call it, main description.
Yeah.
But it's a very semantic structure, which is quite nice to use editorially also.
It is. And you can go further. You can have as many paragraph collections as you want. But for now, I'm happy with two paragraphs with one image, and the other one doesn't have anything.
And if you go up, you can even see that if there's a typo, there's a red underline, and that is a hint that you should add an N at the end. Yeah. See?
Nice one.
Perfect.
I'll even in italic or bold it.
Yeah.
And then what is probably even more interesting is here, where we have the choice component, the structural choice component, and I need to choose between, okay, is this a TV or a fridge? Since I know that this is a TV, I click the TV and I get the table of with the dimensions of a TV, like width, height, and diagonal.
And also show the fridge just to, for fun of it.
Yeah.
Totally different properties.
Exactly. So, like Bård said, you can add as many as you want as well. As long as you have a generic wrapper or a generic shape, you can add just property tables describing each and every product instead. Then we get to the channel-specific stuff.
Choose a TV. Just choose a TV there. I mean, just do some. It doesn't matter what you enter.
Isn't it? This is the inches. Yeah, that's probably perfect. For, like I said, this is either here or it's not. So this is the chunks. And since I know that this will be displayed on the webpage, I really do want to have some proper titles and description and images that people can see whenever I share it on Facebook, for example. So I'll add it here. I get the fields that I have defined. It's TV in the rows.
And what the Rick is doing now is, of course, adding a specific meta title, description, and image. Typically, you would default this to the product name, the product description, and the first product or the default product image. But this allows for full editorial control, so you can have a different title tag on your web shop, for example, than what you actually have on the product page. So it's that flexibility that is quite often asked for, and here you can choose even to use it or not, and then you can have the fallback on this on the web shop. So it's good.
Yeah. Of course, there is bundles. Now I don't have any other products, so let me just publish it. I'll actually do speaker. It's a good thing.
Yep.
Go ahead. That's my speaker. It's 39 euros. Watch that. And I'll go back to my TV. Because what I can do now is to, for this TV, I'm going to create a bundle. You'll actually get 2 pieces of this speaker.
That's stereo.
It is. Oh, you want more? You want 5? For surround? And here you can add multiple items in the bundle, like we talked about. So this could be HDMI cable. I just don't have it here. And so on.
And that's also the same here with the relations on the manufacturer. We did not create a manufacturer shape, but that could be, name, URL, description, logo, and maybe link to a website. That could be a typical manufacturer shape. And related products, that would be probably the speaker, in case you want to have 6 speakers.
And of course, as soon as you add the manufacturer here, you can also, through the API, find out, okay, what items are related to this manufacturer.
Just drag the speaker in there, just to show that you can have relations.
Once again, you can have relations.
Yeah. So that's it's quite a custom content model for a product. One of the things we also talked about was, okay, taxonomies, because one thing is now you have the catalog, you have the shop, and then you have the biggest TV there. But you might have subfolders like TVs, fridges, etc., accessories, even though the company is only TVs and fridges incorporated. You might want to sell accessories, and that would typically be your navigation on your web shop. But what if you want to have an other type of navigation, or you want to have more information about, for example, is this a new release? Is this super eco-friendly type of product, or things like this? How would you solve that, Didrik, in terms of rich, multi-dimensional taxonomies?
Do you guess what we want to do is, you can see in the bottom of each product, there is, or each shape, there is something called topics. And what topics is basically a rich taxonomy where you can define, help me out, Eber. You can define.
You can define multiple dimensions of categories for your product. So think about it as a multi-dimension categorization, or basically you can assign many topics to a product, and the topics are hierarchical. So if you now do, call it specials, for example, in lack of a better word, and then under specials, you can create eco-friendly, for example. Not sure if that's the best example, and you can say new arrival. There could be another one, for example, and then outlet. Yeah. So it's a very simple taxonomy, but of course, then under new arrival, you can say super new under there, and then you can say kind of new. I don't think this is our best taxonomy yet, Didrik, but
it's not bad either. Kind of new.
So and now you have a topic map, which is this way of talking about the special properties. Is it eco-friendly, is it outlet or new? But we could also have an other map, which could be, for example, give me an example. We could do manufacturer there as an alternative to using relations.
That's exactly what we can do. Oh, that's it. Yeah.
So you go to the...
Here we go. Oh. Manufacturers.
Yeah. So, and this is an alternative way of what we just showed. So just to have a couple of different dimensions. So you could do here manufacturers, and then you can create TV, for example. And then under TV, you can say Samsung. Yeah. And then you can say Sony. And that's all the TVs on S, I know. So maybe then you can create fridges. And then under fridges, you can create Smeg. And that's all the fridges on S, I know. Bosch.
Bosch, okay. We have one other.
Okay. So it's just an example of a multi-dimensional categorization, because then we have specials, and this could be used for navigation. You can create your menu like this: manufacturers, shop by manufacturers. Is it TV manufacturers or fridge manufacturers?
Yeah.
And then if you go to your biggest TV, Didrik, you can then look at some topics there.
Yes. I forget it.
And this is basically where you will be able to assign, but you just have to type it correctly, but that's fine. I guess.
It's on me.
Yeah, so that's fine.
Yeah.
And the third way of categorizing, so you have the hierarchical folder structure, and you have the topics that you can assign. So you can assign multiple topics to each product or article or whatever type of content you created. Then we were talking about the grids.
Yes.
And the grids is a, show it, just create a grid and call it something.
Web front page. Okay.
Yeah, you can use it for a front page.
Yeah. Let's go like this.
Yeah, and of course, cases are here. You can use this for making a pretty category page for your web shop, or maybe a point of sale system, so that the cash registry would be, maybe the coffee is bigger than the espresso because it's sold more often. And you can also tune the size and the number of rows, columns, etc. quite easily. And you can also collapse them and make a funky grid. You don't have that many products, so maybe just create a few cells.
Good point. Good point. I'll decrease it to something like this. I'll remove a couple of rows. So here we have 2. I'll even go with this. Here, this is my grid.
Okay.
Okay, then. Like so, then.
Yeah.
And you can, of course, collapse or separate different cells, either over rows or over columns.
But now you have an empty grid, and this is to group products and content. We didn't create any content here, but we have at least a speaker and a TV in our product catalog now, and you can populate them in a grid.
Exactly. I did, of course, not add an image to the big TV, but I did to my speaker, which is better. So what we will, of course, do here is, if we had articles, we would add that here. Or we could even add just the whole shop here. I think I'm still in the visualizing mode here.
Yeah.
The shop folder.
Of course, if you add the speaker to the square space,
it will look better.
Yeah, because of course you didn't add a widescreen image, and the sizing of this, of course, is all about how the front end will interpret this when you display it. What Crystallize will return here is just the data of the grid, basically. So this is the GraphQL response that you get out of this. So today I'm really impressed by the imagery that you did, Didrik. Very colorful.
It was on point. Yeah, I have done better content.
But I guess the point is, if we recap, we looked at tailor making your content model, and then looking at different mechanisms for building out the taxonomies used for navigation, for search, for comparing, etc., so that your products and content are as semantically described as possible, so that you can reuse it in different contexts. So this is the total opposite of having one rich text field, which is your web page, which you could format. Think about the WYSIWYG, the good old Microsoft front page from the 90s, right? It's all formatting and content mixed into one soup. And this is totally structured. It's a future-proof way of managing your products, and you can reuse all of this for any channel super easy. And of course, the content model here, this is just, again, one example. And of course, you need to analyze the type of products and the type of content that you're managing. And then you follow the process of basically starting by the discovery. And then you go through the process where you identify similar types of content, identify repeating information, and also then define the relationships between different types of information. And that's, in our opinion, a quick introduction to content modeling, and to showing you how this can be done in Crystallize. So, Didrik, say goodbye to the internet.
I will say goodbye to the internet, and thank you for watching. I guess we'll be here next Thursday as well.
Have a good one, guys.
Have a good one.